Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
It was little embarrassing actually to have a CV to be read across, but yeah, I think about close to 90 minutes time, I'll take it up, and I've got something planned, of course, but if you could ask your questions, I will take it up and try to change the course of my delivery and do that, because when people talk about career path, now obviously it's not the first time, it's maybe 100th time, or I don't even know how many times people have spoken about career path and how we have to take it forward. But when you realistically see what is career path is, what you wanted to really do. You know, most people don't get that question right. That's exactly where I wanted to get it corrected, and then want to see how you wanted to pursue further. So because today artificial intelligence and machine learning, you think it's ruling the world is one side, or cyber hackers and cyber terrorists who are trying to lure our data and trying to make money out of it is one side of the story. And on the other side, it's like we are improving ourselves in the space industry, or we are doing great job in our mathematics and all other things. These are all which are in front of our eyes, right? But when I started, it was much more different. In fact, when the time I started writing my research proposal, I didn't know what a research paper was, right? It was not very far away. So say about 2009, I finished my master's in computer science. It was a 5-year integrated program, and we never had the ideas. We had internet, fortunately we had exposure, at least I had exposure to internet very early, and I had computers very early. When I was in my school, my father was happy enough to buy me a computer, and things started moving there. But what is next? You know, it's a question that keeps coming in from your relatives, your father's colleagues, your mother's colleagues. You know, these are all common questions, right? What's next? Hey, you finish your 10th standard, you've got a computer at home, what's next? I said, what is the point in answering right now? I said, let me hold, let's come. Let the result comes. I know I'm not going to score well, I'm pretty sure about it because I'm not a good scorer, but let the result comes. So the result came, what's next? I said what, 11th, 12th, that's exactly what it is, what do you call them as preschool, pre-college, whatever you define it. So it was like, see, even somebody is going to ask you a question and then you got to give an answer. That's one level, right? You give an answer for somebody to shut, right? I never wanted it. I heard people coming back and they said, my parents, hey, your son does not even have a path, he does not even have a scope. He does not even know what he is doing. You know, maybe ask these questions to him. Of course, my parents came and said, they said like this, you know, what are your plans? I said, leave it. Allow me to do what I wanted, because there are a lot of time that are realistically available. I'm still in my school, I'm still just going to get into my college, and let me complete all those things, because the real world is just outside the campus of the college. And that's where it started. So by the time things started moving, I started participating in competitions, get to know not the real world. We think that is the real world, but that's actually another imaginary world where you've been given with certificates and laurels and prizes, and it's now becoming more specific to cash prizes like 20,000-25,000 rupees, where you get to enjoy it outright, right? It was not then, but during my times it was like 5,000 was a huge money. In fact, one nostalgia which I could always be able to share was, like, I came to SSN, the same college, I won a first prize, where except SSN college nobody actually enjoyed it, because I come from an arts and science background, right? So these kind of things were very common, right? And when a guy from an arts and science background comes to an engineering college and then winning is not a very normal thing. I don't know how the market is today, but 15 years ago it was not the case, right? And in fact, a lot of places they don't even allow. They said, no, we don't allow arts and science students. That's a mentality which people had, right? But things started moving, opening up. Then people realized that, okay, invite more people so that you get to learn a lot of things. That's exactly how the market got exposed. And we heard about, okay, 2010, there's 2009, there was a recession, 8-9 recession, and then no jobs were there. So by the time when I was completing, I had about 4 job offers. But then people are saying, hey, you didn't score well. Don't ask me what marks did I score, okay? It was never, not even closer to any of you in terms of from the bottom, right? So it'll always be on the first of the class, but from last. That's exactly how we get the score. So 70% was like, don't study anything, don't mug anything, you go right, you still get 70%, what's the point in then getting more? And that didn't help me either, right? None of my marks helped me in my college, None of my marks helped me in any of the places. The only thing that got helped me was what I really wanted to do was something which is very niche. Alright. So my research was in underwater wireless communication. Have you ever heard of this? Underwater wireless communication. Have you ever gone through the newspaper in the last 3-4 days time, BBC News, Times of India, anything? Any newspapers the last 2-3 days time? Everybody knows Titanic, isn't it? Everybody has seen Titanic, right? So I just been to Belfast a few weeks ago. So I went to see the Titanic. I figured out there is a building. They said this is Titanic. Okay, thank you for that. I actually saw it better in the movie. But there is today you have an opportunity. There is a company where you could get into a sub, a small sub size, like the size of the sub is like about 3/4 of this room, right? You can get into the sub, pay a humpty number of big amount of fee, and deep dive about 4 kilometers under the water in deep ocean and see the ruins of Titanic. It's possible, alright? And Sunday there is a crew of five people dived in the sub, alright? And those people, until today morning I did not get it, there was no news from them. And it's like disconnected, it's like MH370 kind of thing where it got disconnected and there are over 70 ships are searching them, a lot of aircrafts are searching them because there is a billionaire, there are a couple of billionaires who are in there, alright. So this is the technology which I tried to learn when there was not many papers were published, right. And then it started moving forward 1-2 steps. When I start speaking about it, people said, oh, is this really possible? So what do you use in underwater? I said, I think it is acoustic waves. Oh, do you know what is the speed of acoustic waves? I said, no idea, but I think it is acoustic waves, so I want to do a PhD on it. Okay, that's exactly the knowledge I had. Then I wrote a research proposal which said, okay, there are 2 problems and we want to solve a problem and get to solve the problem. We don't know whether we can solve the problem or not is a $1 million question again, but never know whether we could do it. Wrote a proposal, sent it to about 7 different universities. 5 universities said, yeah, we are willing to offer you, but you could start 1 year later, 1 year now, we don't have funding, we wanted to invite you, this, that. And then 3 universities said, okay, these are your application forms, fill it. Because you don't file your application first, you send a research proposal to the respective faculties, they have to approve it and then you fill a form, right. So I got confirmations from 3 people and then filled application, within the next 48 hours time I got admission from all the 3. It was only a formula that they have to follow, just a format of work. But which one I have to choose? I chose, went, did, nobody know what I did, okay, and that's exactly where it is. So I finished my PhD in about 23 months time, alright. But during the time, what I learned, if you're going to give something, what the world is not looking at, alright, and if you know how to explain it to somebody, then that's just going to come out. That's exactly what I learned. So, cybersecurity is a terminology which got opened up in about 2015-16 times, right, but my research was in 2013, I finished it in 2012 itself, and then 13, Viva, all these things got done, 14 I got awarded. So that's exactly how the journey was throughout. But it was called as information security, more specific. It was more how my information is going to be safeguarded. Like it's my own data, it's my own thing. It is today we speak about my own data, my own thing, but it used to be organization's data. It used to be competitive advantage, right? So if you create something and if I copy it, I could create something better than that. That's exactly what everybody was using information security as such. What we are talking about, the ISO 27001, like the standards, NIST standards, these were all existing for a very long time, but we've never seen it from an angle of cybersecurity as such. But today, that is the core where we try to create and see it from an angle of cybersecurity. The domains are very specific in cyber, and why cyber? That's another thing. Today, nobody asks that question, right? Why cybersecurity? Because hackers are everywhere. They are able to lure into networks. They are able to lure into applications, and they can steal our data and going to publish it in a dark web. Everybody knows dark web, right? Access dark web, yeah? Tor browser, like that's a gateway to Tor, the dark web. So we now know where it is going to be hosted, where it is going to be stolen, right? But how? The question is more from a how. Right? All of us speak about offensive hacking, right? All of us speak about hacking as a concept. How much am I going to hack? What am I going to hack? Am I going to hack network? Am I going to hack an application or a device? It is a lot of ways and means that you could actually do hacking. But just think about a common sense aspect. do we have more criminals or do we have more police? Do we have more criminals? Do we have more police? More police, correct? You know what's the stats that actually works out on criminal to police, right? It's actually not supposed to be criminal to police, it's people to police. X number of people versus police. That's exactly how the numbers will keep growing, right? There were not 30,000 policemen 80 years ago, correct? Today we have more than 100,000 policemen because the population has increased, right? So in order to protect X number of people, as a percentage of policemen are required. This is exactly how the composition works. But today we are talking about hackers versus police. Okay, hackers versus people who protect it. And this is exactly where we need to dive, right? So all of you are interested in cybersecurity here, right? Because the whole workshop is about cybersecurity. You would have learned a lot of things about cybersecurity in the last 10 days, correct? So I just want to ask you a few questions, okay, before we get down right in there. You would have understood about networks, application, cloud, compliance, and a lot of things, right? How many of you understood about operational technology? Heard of OT? Yes, no? No. Okay. What if the water that you are drinking at home, okay, is not treated well? The water that is coming in the pipe, alright, you're taking a shower in the water and the water is not treated well. What if you have an examination, you have an online examination, you have a meeting coming up, your power just goes off and you have no idea when the power is going to come up. The inverter charges 8 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, then gone, right? Imagine these things. What if suddenly you have a spike in your power? You're watching your television, you have your high effective televisions and your speakers and your washing machines, your dishwashers and all of these things. Suddenly there is about 500 watt power that's just coming in. What happens to all these devices? Everything will burn, boom, right? This is exactly where we are talking about protection to start with. Why did I start with OT as such is? Today everybody wants a job, right? In fact, everybody wants a job in your hand, right? On the other side of the story, I have never attended an interview in my life. Doesn't look really interesting, but it really happens. Until today, no interviews. And opportunities have always been on my table and I need to choose. Okay, inky, pinky, ponky. This is exactly what's been happening. And why? The only reason is I choose something that is very unique. I choose something where the technology is not exploded. When I started my research on underwater wireless communication, there were hardly about 150, 160 papers existed in the world. Now, how many cybersecurity papers are there? Maybe 25,000, 50,000, 100,000? Yeah, but imagine I only have about 150 papers. And everything speak about the same thing, A to B, B to C, and then vice versa, right? So, for you to read this 150 papers, how long does it take? Maybe 3 months, 4 months? Exactly. So that was one of the reasons where there was not many literatures that existed. Henceforth, whatever I wanted to propose was much easier for people to understand. Okay, because you have this, you're proposing something extraordinary, good to go. People have accepted it. And today, in cybersecurity, there is a new emergence that is coming in called operational technology, otherwise called as OT. We all know IT, right? This is OT, right? OT cybersecurity. It's been there for quite some time, but it's not been spoken well until there is a hack called as colonial pipeline hack, like in the US. Obviously, anything comes out, it has to come from the US or UK, then we actually get to have our eyes open, alright. But I don't see life in there because life is much effective in India, in countries like India, where you get to learn a lot, you have challenges, you also get pretty well paid. We'll also come to that part. That's also part of my definite stature to give you what positions are it and how much are we going to realistically proceed further and how much are we going to earn. Because career development is always going to talk about not just positioning, it's also how much are we going to earn, how fast are we going to settle, isn't it? Right? 4 years, 5 years, that's what everybody wants to settle, right? The moment you want to think 4 years, 5 years, you're not going to settle even after 50, I'll tell you. Okay? So that's a reality. A lot of people have heard, because my disadvantage is I've been the youngest wherever I go, alright, but my advantage towards it, I get to learn the maximum from the elderly people. So the experience gets doubled every time I go and join somewhere and work with somebody else. So that is exactly where I come in. So the OT technology that we are talking about is IT OT convergence. Okay, you know, we have nuclear power plants, yes, we have water treatment plants, yes, we have electricity power generation, hydroelectric power generation, like a lot of other power generation techniques that we have. What if those power generation systems are corrupted? What if that particular data is going to be just boomed by an EM system? You've seen English movies, right? A lot of English movies. How many of you see Winter Soldier from the Marvel? Everybody? Yes, no? Yeah? You've seen one of the scenes where they just power on a device and then the EM wave just burned up, say about few kilometers to a few kilometer radius. And that is possible. There are devices like that exist today, right? You've seen Fast and the Furious 8. Yes, you've seen the car dash scenes, and that is possible today. That is very much possible today, but not like 1,000 devices, but like few hundred devices very easily. In fact, April 2023, there was a statistics that came out, 10 lakh, like 1 million cars that are running in India are definitely hackable. See the numbers, alright. All of these things come under operational technology, right. We'll talk about IT also, because not many companies, many organizations don't offer OT as a domain. There are companies comparatively lesser in terms of that, but where do you really want to place yourself in 5 years? It's a common question that you go and get, somebody would be asking you in front of you, hey, where do you want to be in 5 years? You know, when we were in college, you know, the answer was, I want to be in your seat in 5 years. I want to be in your seat in 10 years. These answers becomes very funny during those times, talking about a decade ago. But today it's much more, right? In fact, I had a discussion with Mr. Mukundan who delivered the morning lecture. His son is an alumni of the same college. He's done his PhD in MIT and then he's got his own startup there. And said, a few years ago I was reading about H2O's AI CEO. H2O.ai CEO. Today I am in the same panel where he is sitting across and then we are having discussions. This is very much possible today. I don't know how many of you are going to be working or where I have to come to you saying, can you please approve this? Can you please help me out with this? And that world has already started, because in fact what today is 22nd, right? Yeah. So today the teacher who taught me what is networks in 2005, today is her Viva, PhD Viva, okay, to be very precise. And she's working with me very closely. I love her a lot for the way that she taught us what is networks, and that's one of the reasons where I was able to pursue networks better, alright. But I got my PhD in 2014 and she is getting her PhD today. I know she will clear it because she is a very talented woman. She was not in academia for a very long time. So she wanted to come back, started doing something, doing it today. It's happening in Adyar today. It's about 25-30 kilometers from here, alright. So the life is upside down, and in fact she requested me, can you be my examiner? Yeah, that's a life we are all working, okay. And when I got to complete my research and then I was working with CSIR in Australia, CSIRO in Australia, like the moment you get in, you become a scientist, and then I was in 3 months internship with them, okay, where my thesis was not submitted by the time. The person whom I was reporting, I was like 25, and the person whom I was reporting was 41, right? 3 months later, my thesis was published. Like I gave the thesis to the head of scientists for them to have a review. He appointed me as a scientist. The person whom I was reporting to, he ended up reporting to me, and that happened, right? So this is the upside down in the career that we all have, especially in the world of cybersecurity. But when you talk about OT as a subject today, the openings are much easier, the openings are much better if you wanted to concentrate on. If you start today, you can understand the technology in about 6 months time. I think then you will get a very good go. And big companies are offering, like Ericsson, like Renault, automobile companies, then governments like NTPC, the DVC kind of electrical companies, they're all hiring effective people, especially they want women today. You know why women? Any reason? They really want women, Indian women, purposefully Indian women, not foreign women, Indian women. Fast. That may be a good reason, but the reason that people defining are, more dedication towards work. Compared to men, the dedication towards work, when a woman is taking up, it's much more better and higher. There are all other reasons come in, multitasking, fast and all of these things. But one thing is dedication, because today dedication has become a big question mark. 15 years ago, it was not like that. You join a company, you be in a company for 5 years, 6 years, it's normal. Today, you don't even stay in a company for 8 months, right? Today, in fact, from our end, we are faced with a danger in front of us, saying, okay, if I'm going to hire a person, and if I'm going to train him for about 3 months or 6 months time, him or her, what if the probability the person will continue to stay here for another 2 more months? A lot of companies have actually called off their trainings. They've said on-job training, gradual training. So that every month I give you something, you put that efforts into it 1-2 months time, so that you don't jump out. Alright, so that's a very bad attitude. In fact, it's been called as the 2K kids attitude. Right? So, the opinions are changing more, but it's not, I don't say it's bad, but it's an attitude. Okay, so it's not a bad attitude at all, but it's an attitude that's now been accepted also. But everything gets to tune themselves, right? So now, the most important thing in OT also originates from IT. Clear? Now I said where you need to reach if you think OT, but it all originates from IT. So how does that happen? Right? Until now, what we call them IT systems and OT systems, they're all separate. Alright? But slowly the convergence are taking place. Which means, if there is a hydroelectric power plant in Dehradun, for an example, alright, and there is a problem in a sensor or something that is being deployed there, so the power generation is being deteriorated by 40%. Who are all going to be affected? People who are using power from there. But for that to be analyzed, person from Karnataka has to travel. If Kirloskar has given them a device, somebody from Kirloskar, Maharashtra has to travel to Dehradun to see what is the problem. How much of time, how much of power, how much of loss it is, correct? So in order to bring that down, the convergence is taking place, which means if there is a problem that's happening in Dehradun's hydroelectric power station, by a click, by a view, you can see what is the problem and say you can rectify it or not. If there is a component issue, then you got to order the component, but imagine the time I take it from Maharashtra to travel to Dehradun and see the place, visual place. I need to maybe go closer to I need to climb a mountain, go in a narrow path and try to identify what it is. Instead of that, I have one IoT sensor that I have deployed, and the sensor is transferring data, and the data is giving me enough information saying whether it's operating right or not. All of these things can come down within few minutes of time, right? We call them as security operations center or operation center, okay, command and control center. In OT environment, it's called as CNC, command and control center. But command and control centers are in particular areas. Like if Dehradun's hydroelectric power station, they will have it in Dehradun only, in the same vicinity, but not elsewhere. So how will somebody be able to have a look into it, right? So how we realistically do today is install a sensor there, connect to the internet, monitor it. This is for the good. But the moment when you connect something to the internet, what happens? Security issue, cybersecurity issue pops up. Malicious hacker always wanted to take control over the systems and wanted to bring the sensor down, malfunction a sensor, create a problem scenario, alright. So there's a lake, imagine this scenario, there's a lake and that is feeding about close to 5 million people, about 50 lakh people is being fed by that particular lake for instance. And if that lake is having a water treatment plant, every lake has a water treatment plant, right? and that water treatment plant's chlorine level, the pH levels are all like malfunctioning, and the water has to reach the city. How many people will get affected because of that? Right? If the sensors are not working, or for me the pH level is supposed to be maintained at 6.7 for an example, okay? And what if the pH level is going to be 10? It's going to be disastrous, right? And what happens? Because according to the systems, the water treatment in your house or any of the water treatment plants, private plants, where you get a bottle of water, right? They will think that the water pH level between 6.5 and 7.2 for an example, if it is coming in that like that, the systems will add minerals and do the filtration according to these levels. What if the levels are going to be higher? Instead of 7.2, it's going to be 10, then automatically systems will not be able to operate, right? So everywhere there is going to be chaos. And this is exactly what we are talking today as IT OT convergence. Alright, I'm going to give you a terminology called as Industry 5.0. Heard of this before? Yeah? Industry 4.0, industry, right now we are in Industry 4.0, Industry 5.0 is just on the way. And IT OT convergence is one of the most important things that's going to be discussed in detail with clauses, standards, frameworks, protocols and stuff like that. So if you have intention in doing something very unique and high in cybersecurity, IT is always there, we're going to definitely touch base on that, but yeah, if you say my goal is going to be OT for the next 2 years, 3 years, I want to get into OT, you will become master in about 5 years time, 7 years time, right? When I started, as I said, information security was the term, cybersecurity was not even a common term. Every technology when it started coming into cybersecurity, I was able to update it, okay? Today, I know all the technology, just give a very clear disclaimer here. I know all the technology names, at least. I'm not saying I know all the technology as such, right? I know all the technology names and where is it applied to. I don't know the technology entirely. Because for someone to really spend all the time to only understand about technology, where will I do the preaching and where will I go to make money, right? So I know what is required for me to have it delivered and what is happening elsewhere. Get it? Imagine connected cars. Okay, water treatment plants are all like not going to be visible to us, but what about connected cars? We're all talking about connected cars, right? You know, the cars that we are all going in, the sound systems, the braking systems, how many of you know cruise control in a car? You know what's a cruise control? You drive your car at about 100 kilometers per hour, okay? You click the cruise control button, it gets locked at 100 kilometers per hour, you can take your legs from the accelerator and the car will continue to travel at 100 kilometers per hour. Today, you have sensors at the front of the car, alright? And those sensors, if there is a car that's, you're driving faster, there's a vehicle that's going at front and that's traveling at about 80 kilometers per hour. You know what this vehicle will do? This will create an alarm first, then it will apply the brakes automatically to make sure that this vehicle of yours is not hitting this vehicle. Okay, there are a lot of technological names are out there. I'm not here to talk about that here. But the point here is, and if you brake plus the brake button, your speed will automatically gradually reduce. Right? So we're talking about these things being available for a longer time, where cruise control getting locked, kind of issues have happened. But imagine I can control your car when you're driving. Right? It's possible today. By systems that are available, by infotainment systems or the systems that are accessing the engine, the ECUs and other things, called as telematics. Alright? So the music player that is installed in a car can be used as a weapon to access your car's brake, accelerator and all of these things. Funny, isn't it? But this is real. This is not a new news, this is about 7 to 8 years old news. And today we are talking about car data being sent to the manufacturer, the original equipment manufacturer, otherwise called as OEM. Alright? So if my car has got a problem with the wheel, the infotainment system, the telematics systems will communicate to the application that you have installed in your mobile phone. That mobile phone will pass the data to the command and control center of the OEM. if the car manufacturer is Maruti for an example, or Suzuki, this data will get communicated to them. We don't have enough engineers to analyze those things and provide a solution today. Alright, so that's a very wide open technology, wide open area, which is not rocket science again, which is very easy. You just need to understand the simple logic behind it. So what you need to learn in order to achieve that? You know what you know in the starting salaries of those profiles, it starts a bare minimum of about 6 lakhs, goes until 20 lakhs per annum for freshers. Alright, and for you to get that profile, for you to become a master in the profile, it takes only 3 to 5 years because there are not many people who are following that. So you become into a narrow line, easy for you to grow up in your life. Alright, that's exactly what I did. So I always choose a technology which is not prominent. Alright, I go and read research papers and try and understand, okay, what's coming up, what's coming up, what's coming up. There are a lot of IT research that are coming up, a lot of cybersecurity based research that are coming up. I said, okay, these are all, a lot of people are doing, but what is unique, what is different? And that's one way which will take you to different heights as well. So I will draw right now on the IT infrastructure, how you guys have to, you people have to get in, and what is going to take you to, if you are interested in OT or if you are interested in any of the segments in IT. Alright? Yeah, okay, you can see it, right? Okay, so let me put this here. So please pardon me with my handwriting. You know why I don't score marks now. Okay, so cybersecurity, right? I define it like 4 E's pillars. Okay. So pillar number 1, we call it networks or network security. All the entire infrastructure of that particular networks comes in. Infrastructure comes in with application, it comes in with networks. This is like network security, network, host, server infrastructures do come in. In fact, cloud is also part of networks. It does a convergence later point of time. Alright? So networks and network security. Right? Number 1. Next, application security. All your web application, your mobile application, your IoT application, your cloud application, everything pretty much comes into application security. Alright? There's only 4 which I know so far. Alright? And everything falls one way or the other into these things. Because you use either a laptop, which is a desktop, right? Or web application, like desktop application, web application. Then it gets into mobile. That's a different version. Mobiles, PDAs, your iPads, your pads, and all of these things comes into it. And then it goes into IoT today because sensor applications are coming up very effectively. We are all operating by means of sensors, right? Right? How many of you have got a watch that can sense your heartbeat? 1, 2, 3. That can sense. How many of you have a watch in your hands right now to sense your heartbeat? Okay. So what's your heartbeat? You have turned it off. Turn it on. So what's your heartbeat? It's off. Right? But it has got its facility, right? So that's exactly what we're talking about. So that's an IoT. That's Internet of Things. That's a sensor that's connected to your body and captures those data. Alright? So gyroscopes, right? Helps you which altitude are you in. My mobile phone can tell me in what height I am actually standing. Right? We do all those, we use all of those things. We're not talking about the hazardous things. Let's keep all of those things away. Right now we're talking about technology. Let's talk technological, positive technological work. Alright? So all of these things comes into IoT kind of things, like IoT applications. And then finally you have the cloud applications. Right? But then you have the convergence on network security, application security, then you have the cloud. Because your networks that is critically happening or critically regulating all your infrastructure, whether it is a hardware infrastructure or it's an SDN software defined networking infrastructure, it's still the same, right? 1. And we need an application to run all of these things, right? So application security also comes in convergence. So your cloud is not without networks and application, and hence that is a holistic infrastructure. This is an infra.